My name is Daniel Posney, and this is Shifting Perspectives. And in this topic, it's going to be about recapping of the men's retreat that just happened October 10th through the 15th, 2024. So, 6 days, a lot happened, and a lot was talked about, a lot was experienced. And I'm going to do my best to recap what we talked about and what we experienced. So, one other thing was I shared an experience that I had with my wife where my mind got triggered and it started to build this case about wow, Valerie was this and not enough of that, and she would have done this, and all these, you know what happens with your mind. And even though you want to love them, your mind builds up this fortress or this case, this like legal case against them. And you're sitting there just believing it like you want this case, and it was building up all these points about Valerie, and I was building this really good case, and man, I was gonna knock her down a notch. And I was like, it was so frustrating. And maybe this is why we get angry, is because we don't want to be angry. We want to love, and our mind is taking us over. So I was left with the decision: do I want to keep building this case and knock her down a notch, supposedly? Or do I want to be happy? And I realized that I want to be happy. And so, even though I had built up this amazing case with all these great points and I was going to win this case, I just had a moment where I just said, I'm dropping the case. And I said that to my mind, and my mind went, what? How can, how can you do that? How can you drop that case? And I said, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? But that's what I'm doing. And so that was a very empowering moment to share with everyone about how we can do that. It's not us that is building the case, it's a part of us, it's an aspect of us, but it's not us that's wanting to do this. So that was really cool to see the guys really get that and really kind of put that in their toolbox of, yeah, even though you're very smart and you've got your case and you're going to win, but is that what we're really in relationship for? To be in this um, back and forth thing where we're kind of always adjusting to make sure that we're ahead of the other person. And it was so good to let that go. And then we also talked about balancing the feminine and the masculine. That's always a great topic, and regardless of you're in a heterosexual or homosexual relationship, there's still that balance of the feminine and masculine energies. And that was really cool to talked about it in a gay relationship, so that there's still talk about there's this receiving energy and there's this giving energy and there's this more analytical, logical energy and more nurturing, tender energy. So it doesn't matter if there's two men or two women or a man and a woman, there's still that energy going on, and it plays out in our life. And not that we're wanting everyone to be, this certain masculine, feminine, but just to have that balanced out where it's kind of out of balance in your relationship. And you can tell when it's out of balance in certain ways that you communicate with each other. Then we talked about balancing out the egoic drive and the divine will, and saying, this is who I am, and this is my determination of who I am, and I also give it up to spirit that it's running the show anyway. So even though it sounded like there was a little bit of a um, incongruency, or it was hard to negotiate, or how I want to say this. uh, look like they played against each other, the divine will and the egoic, but that's what's going on. That there's this desire for us to experience things, and there's also the experiencer, which is the divine will. Um, Also, knowing and experiencing your divine nature in what can be called Christ consciousness. And we all have that ability to live and breathe and experience the Christ consciousness. It doesn't have to be Jesus Christ. It can be that we choose to live in that consciousness. But first, we need to kind of come out of that which isn't the Christ consciousness, which is the mind. So we love the mind, we appreciate the mind, we adore the mind, but it's not really fit to run our life and to make decisions for us. We can call on it when we need it, but we want to live in that consciousness of an expanded reality. We talked about relationship communication. We talked about how we can stop being in this teasing, and instead we flirt, and we can do little touching, grabbing, pinching, you know, just flirting with each other and getting back to playfulness. And instead of this always trying to compete with the other person. And that's what us guys tend to do a lot, is we compete with the other person, and we think that we're in this competition with our lady or with our partner. So getting into more consciously communicating. And there's a couple of guys that I'm working with that really are diving deep into this and finding out that maybe what they think is the right thing to do in this, that they need to be more firm. Actually, it's they need to pull back and feel what's going on and what their lady is looking for. And then the other thing is sometimes they think that they need to be soft and tender, and actually she needs him to draw his sword. She needs him to be firm and show her who he is in this. And it doesn't mean that he needs to argue with you, but he needs to show up in a certain way that says, I've got this kind of thing. So we talked about that. We also talked about earth connection and nature, and we did drumming and singing and exercises to get ourselves into our body, and that was awesome. We talked about conserving sexual energy. We talked about loving our sexual anatomy and loving our private parts, but also realizing that they are sacred parts of us, and to expend the energy through orgasm, something that would just need to be kind of just check into that we can have orgasm, but we could not lose our seed. We could not lose our fluids. So it's a sacred way of experiencing sexual arousal and orgasm, but not losing our energy through it. We talked about addictions and shame and guilt. That we talked about. It's people focus on the thing. We focus on the alcohol or the drug or the porn or whatever, and those are strong parts of it. They're big parts of it, but also, why are we doing this? Why is this coming up? Well, it activates the connection that we have with shame and guilt. So when we focus so much on the thing that we're addicted to, supposedly, then we lose sight of that there's an underlying thing that's happening that's causing our attraction to that thing. So what if we experienced whatever the addiction is without shame or guilt? Would we need that thing anymore? So that brought up that question. So I talked about this story with Paramahansa Yogananda and about one of his disciples, talking about how he had this desire for alcohol and cigars and women and sex. And Yogananda said, basically keep doing that, enjoy that. But if you keep following this path, eventually those things will fall away on their own. And I love that. Releasing judgment. A couple of us shared that we had judgment about each other. And that came up, by where our initial contact with each other. And then we got to know each other. And then, there's a couple of guys that admitted, man, I had judgment about you, but I love you. And it was so amazing for guys to be brave and vulnerable and honest and just really cool. Like for guys to come together like that and just be really honest and loving and powerful in their honesty, it was just awesome. We also talked about healing the negative Catholic experience. So in this work, you're bound to meet people that say, "I'm a recovering Catholic." So there are some people that have had a negative Catholic experience in their childhood. Lots of beatings and getting their hands slapped, and even sexual abuse and different things that people need to recover from. And it's a real thing. So we talked about that, and that was amazing. Healing chronic illness. There was a few of them that had chronic things going on. Some things that even brought up, despair and depression and sadness and thoughts of suicide and that kind of thing. So we talked about that. We talked about health and nutrition, how different people, the way that they shared with each other, it wasn't like, you should do this. How come you're doing that? There was no judgment. It was all about just offering, hey, I went through a similar thing here, and this is what really helped me. I'm sure you're totally taking care of yourself, and you're on this journey. Here's something. And it was done like, from what I saw, it was done in a very soft, non-threatening way. So that was cool. Knowing your true value, knowing that worthiness in itself is a bullshit idea. It's not a real idea, and yet we have this true value that in our own world, in our own universe, we are the only person here. We are the only being in this universe, and everything else is a reflection of us in our own sliver of our reality. So in that sense, we are the creator, the projector of that universe, of that reality. So in that, there's this inherent divine essential value. But as far as like an egoic thing and what I'm doing here, what I'm creating, and who I am, and all this, you got to kind of be careful with that, because it gets kind of an egoic thing. And when you don't do the right things, or you don't do them well, or you fail, it kind of breaks down your inherent value. So we talked about that. Inner child healing. We did every morning we did qigong and yoga and meditation, and during one of them, we slipped into an inner child healing, which was just kind of spontaneous the way it kind of came out. But we went on this journey, and we met our inner child, and we talked to inner child, and we got to spend time with it, and realized that in an adult life we have these certain needs around sex and money and attention or whatever the things, but the thing that the inner child needed were very critical to sustaining life, safety and protection and nutrition and those kind of things. And when those things aren't there, it's a life-threatening situation for that inner child. So we talked about how to meet that inner child and to feel what that inner child would be feeling. And until you can feel what the inner child was feeling, the fear about not having those things, not feeling that they're safe, and not feeling that you're heard, and those kind of things, until you can actually feel the emotions of that, your inner child is going, "Hey, man, I don't care how enlightened you become. I could give a shit. I'm still going to be back here, and you're never going to be fully complete." So that was awesome. And there's a couple of us that had a really deep emotional release with that. We went to the wolf sanctuary, and it started out where you might think, oh, this is going to be so cool. We're going to go in the enclosure with these wolves. Oh my gosh. And they're not going to attack us, and we could be with them and pet them. Yeah, that's kind of like the very small part of what actually happens in the wolf sanctuary. It's difficult to talk about this without getting emotional about it, because it's kind of like there are ancestral brothers and sisters, and through white colonization and control and manipulation, that relationship has been severed or really kind of pushed far apart. And when we get to come back to them, it's like we have this family, this renewal, this reuniting of this relationship that we once had. and they are our brothers and our sisters. And when you have that experience again, they were so loving, so non-judgmental, so unconditional in their love, and they just come up to you and they just, it's kind of like they're saying, I've missed you so much and I want you a part of my life again. And all the things that have happened in the past, I don't judge you or men for. I just want to be together again. Imagine just having that feeling just by being in their presence. So that was amazing. We did breath work, and of course, that's always awesome. It takes you to this state of divine knowing, divine grace, and it pulls away all the aspects of your mind and your programs and your perceptions, and it leaves you with this inner default happiness and knowing that not many things can give you. We did a sweat. We did a purification sweat. It wasn't a Native American sweat, but it was a sweat, and to purify our bodies and our minds, and to pray. And it was hot in there, and the stones really cooked up, and they really released a lot of wisdom. So the stones are the grandfathers and the grandmothers who hold all this wisdom inside of them. And we talked about how the stones come from the earth, so that's one element. And then we put these lava stones into the fire, that's the other element. And then when they're ready to come into the womb of the mother, which is the lodge, and their water is poured over them, and then so that's the other element. And then the last element is air, or the wisdom that comes out, that's released out of the stones. So it's not just about getting high. It's not a rite of passage. It's not what it's supposed to be. But it kind of turns into a thing that you've got to kind of push yourself through because it's emotional. And with the steam and the heat and the closeness and all that and the darkness, it kind of plays on that. So all of us are kind of working with our own emotions and what's coming up for us. And it's like when you put yourself in a secluded, enclosed place like that with other brothers, and you realize that you have an opportunity to be real, to be authentic, what's going to come up? And when a guy starts sharing about what's really happening in his life, it's not that everything's fine or I'm just going this little thing here, that you actually get to be real in that darkness and in the heat of that. And it's like you start sweating, and it's just a beautiful release that's highly, highly recommended. Again, it's not something that is created so that you can't leave the lodge, that it's going to be too much or something. If anyone has any problem whatsoever, they leave the lodge. And one guy did get too hot. He had a chronic illness thing going on. And so we let him out of the lodge and he came back. But it's really not like a show how tough you are kind of thing. It's really letting all the elements of that open you up. And so we said prayers for ourselves. We got real with ourselves, and we said prayers for other people. Um, it's really you're sitting with the sacred smoke and the steam. What else? Wow, we had so many amazing speakers. Anthony and Adam and Todd and Valerie and Kurt. Man, so many, so much wisdom to be, right there in that place. We spent a lot of time at the Hummingbird House in Cornville. We did go into Sedona. We went on a hike to Do Mesa. That was amazing, just sitting out there. We didn't talk a lot. We didn't do hardly any work. We just kind of just enjoyed the peace up there and the view and just got to be there. And when you just get to be and you just get to kind of release any of your responsibilities and the things that are going on in your life, it's just kind of critical to just be. We went to Cathedral Rock. We had a beautiful hike up there. I got to play some didgeridoo and flute up there in the little secret pocket that we go to. It was fun, funny. We laughed and had a great time. We joked around and we just got to be, teenage boys for a little bit. And, it was great. And on the way down, we went into the creek. We jumped into the water. It's awesome. And of course, after the sweat lodge, we jumped in the creek that's right there by our house. So that was it. So for the next retreat, if you're interested, if you have someone that's interested, up to, let's see, June 27th is the 4-day retreat happening next year. October 9th through the 15th is the one that's happening at that time. So two retreats. One is a 4-day retreat. One is a 6-day retreat. Come to both. Come to one. It's going to be fantastic. I keep getting these messages that this is just going to keep on growing and growing. So what I do is I just handle all the teachings and the experiences and all that, and then you handle the lodging and the food. It's so much more exciting to me to handle all the other stuff as opposed to the lodging and the food. So you're in charge of that, and that way you get exactly what you want, and it kind of helps you activate your own responsibilities so that I'm not in charge of everything. I love that. So that's it. I hope you're doing well. I'll be checking in more often now. Good to be back. I love you. Thank you and bless you.